Hier ist die neue Folge der Ökonomie-Videos.
All right, so we all use money every single day, right? But have you ever really stopped to think about what it is? Today, we're going to peel back the layers on our monetary system. And, well, what we're going to find is something way more complex and, honestly, way more contradictory than you'd probably think.
Okay, so let's get right into it. If I ask you where money comes from, you're probably picturing, a big government printing press churning out stacks of bills. And yeah, that happens. But that's just a tiny, tiny piece of the puzzle. The real story? Well, it's a whole lot more interesting.
You see, most of the money out there, the stuff that's actually in your bank account right now, that's what's called bank money. The Germans even have a great word for it, Giralgeld. And here's the wild part, it's not made by some central government body. Nope, it's created digitally by thousands of different commercial banks every single time one of them gives out a loan.
So what that means is our whole system is basically a bank-based system. It's decentralized. It's not run by some central command. And you have to understand, this wasn't some kind of accident. It was designed this way on purpose, with some very specific goals in mind. Which, of course, brings us to what it's supposed to be good at.
All right, so let's talk about the design. Now, you might hear decentralized and think chaotic, but that's not the idea at all. At least on paper, the whole thing is actually designed for stability. It's got these multiple layers of protection built right in to make it super resilient.
And when you look at it, the logic is actually pretty smart. Being decentralized means individual banks can be flexible, They can respond to what's happening on the ground in their local communities. Plus, and this is key, almost all of this new money is tied to something real. A house, a business plan, it's backed by collateral. So there's this built-in brake pedal to stop banks from just printing money like crazy. I mean, it's their own skin in the game, right? They want to make good loans. And check this out. The safety net isn't just one thing. It's built like a fortress, with 4 distinct layers of defense. So first, a bank spreads its risk across tons of different loans. If a few go bad, no big deal. But if the bank itself starts to wobble, Layer 2 is its own capital, a buffer to take the hit. If even that's not enough, Layer 3 kicks in, banking groups that support each other. And then the final, ultimate backstop. If everything is going sideways, you have the central bank, the lender of last resort, for the whole shebang. So, okay, you look at all that, all those layers, all those safeguards, our money should be perfectly safe, right? Like rock solid, unshakable. Well, you know how it is with these big, complex systems. The blueprint on paper, it doesn't always tell the whole story of what happens in the real world.
Because even the strongest-looking fortress can have cracks. And that's where we're going next. We're going to look at the built-in weaknesses, the fragilities that are just part of the design that can actually lead to some really big problems.
And this right here is the fundamental problem. It's the core tension in all of banking, and you just can't get away from it. See, a bank's assets, all the loans it's made, are long-term. Think about a 30-year mortgage. You can't just snap your fingers and turn that into cash. They're illiquid. But the bank's liabilities, that's your money, your checking account, are totally liquid. You can walk in and demand it all back right now. And that mismatch, well, that's the recipe for a classic bank run. There was this fantastic economist, Hyman Minsky, who just nailed this idea. He basically said that stability is destabilizing. It's a paradox. When things are good for a long time, everyone, lenders, borrowers, all of us, gets a little too comfortable, a little overconfident. We start taking on more and more risk, and without even realizing it, we're planting the seeds for the next big crisis.
And because of that human tendency, the system doesn't just ride the waves of booms and busts, it actually makes the waves bigger. It amplifies them. That's why they call it pro-cyclical. So when times are good, credit is cheap and easy, which just pours gasoline on the fire and helps create these massive bubbles. But then, the second a little panic sets in, that credit faucet just slams shut. It completely dries up, starving the economy of money right when it needs it most. And that makes every downturn way, way worse than it had to be.
But it's not just about booms and busts. The very structure of the system forces us into some really tough trade-offs. And it makes you start asking some fundamental questions about fairness and, what we're actually prioritizing as a society.
And this is where we get into some pretty serious side effects. First, you've got moral hazard. Think about it. If banks know they're probably going to get bailed out if things go wrong, what's stopping them from taking on insane amounts of risk? Then there's the fact that we've basically given this huge public power the ability to create money to private for-profit companies. And a lot of the time, where does that new money go? Not into building new factories or creating new jobs, but into buying up existing stuff, like stocks and houses, which just pushes their prices higher and higher.
And maybe the biggest paradox of all is this: because every loan has to be paid back with interest, the system itself needs the whole economy to be constantly growing just to keep up, just to tread water. Now, don't get me wrong, growth can be great. It brings innovation, development, all kinds of good stuff. But this built-in demand for perpetual growth, that can put a massive strain on our planet and its resources.
So, where does that leave us? How do you even begin to make sense of it all? Well, what we have is a system that's just full of contradictions. It's a machine designed for stability that by its very nature creates instability. It's an engine for growth, but a kind of growth that comes with a really heavy price tag.
Really, when you lay it all out like this, you see that every single feature is a two-sided coin. For every advantage, there's a disadvantage hiding on the other side. That amazing flexibility, it comes with the risk of bank runs. That security of having loans backed by assets, it helps fuel those boom and bust cycles. Our entire monetary system is just this incredibly delicate and you could even say precarious balancing act.
So, in the end, the question isn't really, is our system good or bad? It's more complicated than that. It's about understanding the specific trade-offs it makes. And all the big debates you hear about alternatives like full reserve banking or some of these crypto ideas, they're not really about finding a perfect system. They're about choosing a different set of trade-offs. And that really leaves us with the biggest question of all, one we all have to think about. What do we really, truly want our money to do?